Welcome. Thank you for joining us for First Person Conversations with Holocaust Survivors. I'm Bill Benson, and I have hosted First Person for the past 25 years. Each month, we bring you firsthand accounts of survival during the Holocaust. Each of our first person guests is a volunteer at the museum. Please send us any question you have and let us know where you're watching from in the live chat. We are honored to have Holocaust survivor Joël Nommick share his firsthand account of survival with us. Joël, thank you for agreeing to be our first person and for joining us all the way from your home in France.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate to be there, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Joël, we'll get started. You have a great deal to share with us in a short period of time. Joël, you were born in Macon, France in December 1942, about 3 years after World War II began, to Jean and Agnes Nommick. Before we turn to the war and the Holocaust, please tell us about your parents and their life before the war began.
Yes, my parents were born during the Russian Empire before World War I in a country which is now Estonia. My mother was in a Orthodox family, like most of them were, and she had 6 brothers. And my father was also from another city, but he was also from an Orthodox family as well. And he had 2 brothers and one sister. And what happened after the World War I, there was like a civil war with the Soviet Revolution at the time. So there was a lot of problems, and people were scared that a lot of people tried to immigrate at that time from the Baltic states. So a lot of them went to Eastern Europe. Some went to Northern America or South America at the time. So that was the bulk of their journey.
Mm-hmm. At one point, your parents lived in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Yes.
Why did they go to Argentina, and did they consider staying there?
Yes. So my parents moved to France first, and then my father went to Argentina. He was in the fur business with my uncle John, who was one of my mother's brother, was a specialist of pelts, of furs. And they went there, and they to have contacts and built a business. And then my mother joined them in 1920 at the end of 28, because before that my parents get married in Paris in 28. And then when she went to Buenos Aires, she was pregnant with my oldest brother, Bernard, who was born on February 1st, 1929, on my mother's birthday. So in Buenos Aires. And they came back to France after the crash of 1929, which hurted most economies around the world. And they felt that they probably will have a better chance to go back to France to establish their business. So that's why they went there.
You mentioned your brother Bernard. You had 2 brothers, your brothers Bernard and Serge.
Yes.
They were both born more than 10 years before you were. Tell us about this photo.
Yeah, this photo was taken in 1939 in the Alps in Chamonix in France. From the left, you have my brother Bernard. Behind him, my father. Then my mother and my brother Serge in front of my mother, and my uncle John, the brother of my brother.
And your uncle John that you just mentioned, who's in this photo, tell us a little about him.
Yeah, he was a fur specialist. He was a great traveler. He used to go many times to the Americas by boat, of course, at the time, and to do this business. He used to buy pelts mainly in Argentina and in in Chile, and then he will have that either buying it for some customers in France, which will use those pelts or transform them, or in America. So he used to come to New York because the first trade was in New York. It was a big thing there, and also in Montreal in Canada. So and then he came back also to France a little later than they did. Yeah.
Your family eventually settled in a village called Toissy in France.
Yes.
And that's where your father had a very successful business. Tell us about your father's business.
Well, what they did, they will import pelts from around the world. They will have them transformed in order to be able to sell them to people who will make, for example, coats or things like that in fur, or sometimes gloves, and also for some fur coats mainly, and other accessories in leather, depending on the customer. So they had a good business, and it was running well. And they bought a house outside of Paris in a good neighborhood with my brothers were going to school there in a private school. They had cars. They were living a good life, before the war.
And as you said, they had a successful business, living a good life. Your father's business was a major employer in the village of Toissy, right?
Yes. But what happened in 1937? He sold a bunch of furs to this factory, which he has done business prior, and they always paid. And this time they couldn't pay, so he tried to obtain terms, to make terms for them, and they say we can't. We have to go Chapter 11. And so we went into a judge, and the judge asked my father if he thinks he can see a future for this business, which he studied, and he made an offer. And in fact, he left the money that they owe, plus he put some more cash flow in order to have this business running. And he reorganized his business, and after like 16 months, the business was doing extremely well. Because he was not, taking the profits to put in his own pocket, and in fact, this village was like 1,200 people at the time, and we employed about 300 people in the factories. So it was the major employer there.
In fact, when you factor in children as part of that population,
Yes,
he really employed a substantial portion of the population.
definitely.
Joel, before we continue, I'd like to let you know that we have a lot of people watching today from all over the place. We have people watching today from Washington State, Illinois, Alabama, Utah, and Rhode Island. And we also have international viewers today. We have people listening to you today from Brazil, Canada, Spain, Romania, and Poland. So to all of you, wherever you are, thank you very much for joining us. Joel, during World War II, Nazi Germany invaded France in May 1940. The country was divided into two main zones. The German military occupied zone was in the north and along the Atlantic coast, and the unoccupied zone, as it was called, was in the southeast. A collaborationist French government known as the Vichy regime governed all France alongside the German authorities. Tell us about the anti-Jewish laws that were passed by the Vichy government and how they impacted your family.
Yeah, the first laws came into just after the invasion of France, and they were the Jews have to register with the police or or with the city hall where they were living. They had to fill up also the fact if they had other relatives in the house who were Jewish as well. Then the worst, and then they started to push the Jews out of some jobs. First of all, you could not be a government employee, even if you have been there for many years. You could not be a cop or a military person, even if you had all your working years in those places, and so on. You could not be a notary, you could not be a doctor, you could not be a pharmacist. Basically, you could not do anything for most people. So people start looking, maybe to move out, but still, it was not on the scale that it became later. So in early 1941, they listed more drastic laws, and those laws were a copycat of the Nuremberg laws in Germany. So basically, the Jews could not have a normal life. You could not be an architect. You could not be anything. So that was a problem. And what happened after that? The Kabbalah was organized against my father by the former shareholders of the company, because they saw a great opportunity to get back the business, which was doing so well now, for nothing, because they just have to denounce a Jew which is robbing the company and his employees. That were the terms. Employed. There was an article in the local paper made my family really ashamed, and especially my brothers. Like you have their father, painted on a way on the newspaper that he's a crook. And
that ended up leading to your father actually getting arrested, right?
Yes, he was arrested on June 30th, 1941, in Toissay, by the cops from the village, 2 cops of the village. Then he was conducted to a prison, a jail, in a place it's about 1.5 hours from Toissay in the mountains. And he didn't stay long. He was transferred from a larger jail in Lyon called the Prison Saint-Paul. And then from there, he was transferred a few weeks later to a camp in southern France on the foothills of the Pyrenees called Le Vernet. There were a lot of camps in France, as a matter of fact. A lot of people didn't.
Which most people, I think, don't even know about today.
Yeah.
Right?
There was only one extermination camp, which was in Alsace, in the mountains, called Struthof. In fact, in that camp, this is where they experimented the Zyklon B for the effectiveness of killing people rapidly.
Eventually, your father would end up in a military hospital, right, in Toulouse.
Yes.
Tell us how he ended up ending up in a military hospital from the other prisons that he was in.
When he was at Le Vernet, the camp Le Vernet, he, with the help of a doctor there, he simulated epilepsy. How does you simulate epilepsy? So that's what was told to me. He was obliged, he had to drink like 3-4 gallons of water a day, don't eat anything. And I think they were giving him like some plants or some drugs with it. So after like a week or so, he started to have like, the effect of a crisis of epilepsy. And they transfer him to a military hospital in Toulouse, France, which is one of the largest cities besides Bordeaux on the southwest of France. And my mother joined him there in Toulouse with my 2 brothers. I think it was in June of 1942, early June or during June of 1942.
And your beginning also started right there in Toulouse as well. I believe your mother, you were conceived in Toulouse at the military hospital.
Yeah, I think from what I know, I was conceived in that hospital, or maybe in an hotel in the city of Toulouse. I don't know, because in order to arrange my mother, I said, "Oh, you conceive me in a cell in a jail." so, but- so she will give me a good slap on the head. But
I can imagine.
yeah,
This is a great photo, though, of your
yeah,
mom and dad.
yeah. I love this photo because it shows a love of each other, for the other one, and it's a terrific picture.
Yeah,
I, mm,
despite all that they'd already gone through at that particular point, it does. You're right. It just conveys their love, which is really wonderful.
yeah,
Joel, after a couple of months in the military hospital, your father was then transferred to another town, Aix-les-Thermes, which is in the foothills of the Pyrenees Mountains, close to Spain.
yes,
Your mother, now of course pregnant with you, along with your brothers, followed him there.
yes,
They made plans, I believe, to escape France. Can you tell us about those plans and what happened?
yes. First of all, with them, there was the wife of an associate of my father, was a fur chemist, and he was in Le Vernet also with my father, and she was with their twin daughters, Agnes and Denise. And we were waiting for the father to come, and in fact, he was able to leave Le Vernet, but he was not able to join us in Aix-les-Thermes. So I think he thought we were gone already to Spain, and he went to Spain, and that's what was a tragedy there, because we waited too long. And even the mayor of the village, my father befriended the mayor of the village. They were playing cards together, and he said, "Listen," because he was also the owner of the hotel that we were in. He said, "Listen, when you need to go to Spain, you just let me know. I'll take my cars. I'll take you there myself. With your family, you will not have to show any papers or anything, because on the top of the mountain there was a little state called Andorra, and Andorra was had the co-prince. The co-prince of Andorra, one was a king of Spain, and the other one was a president of the Republic of France. So they say, so we waited too long, and one day I think it was on the 20th of September, they came to arrest us. And my younger brother ran because he saw, and he ran to the people who were coming with a car, and he told my father, "They come to pick us up. Run, run, run!" He said, "No, I can't run, and I cannot run." And what it meant if I give myself up, you'll be saved. And that's what he did. He gave himself up in order to save us. And 2 days later, he was in Drancy, which is a camp outside of Paris. It was a triage camp where all the convoy, the rail convoy, were going to the east. Nobody knew where they were going at the time. And he even sent a postcard on the day he left Drancy, a few hours before. And if you want, I can tell you about
Yes,
this.
absolutely. And just so make sure that our audience understands this, he essentially, you were all prepared to escape, but because of the delay, it didn't happen. And your father, as you said, gave himself up and was then sent to Drancy, and on his way to Auschwitz, he writes this postcard. Yes, please do read this to us.
Yeah, this postcard was sent from Drancy on September the 24th, 1942, 2 days after he arrived in Drancy. It was addressed to Mr. Joseph Guy, 29 Rue d'Ambay in Mâcon, France. you can notice
Joel, before you go on, just one quick question. Why was it addressed to another person, this Mr. Guy?
because he didn't want to compromise us in what he said in the postcard.
Okay.
Or he wanted to, until the end, he wanted to make sure that we were protected, you know.
And he must have been somebody your father trusted then.
Yeah, he was a good friend of my father and my uncle as well.
Okay.
So he said, and you can notice also the card at the stamp of Maréchal Pétain and the stamp of the Vichy police, which was really a total collaborationist part of the Vichy police. And
Marshal Pétain was the head of the Vichy government.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is what it says. My dear friend, I will be grateful if you could transmit to Agnes, the children, and Jean, my uncle, the news that I will depart in a few hours France to an unknown destination. I know also that they had the intent to leave on a trip. I wish them well with all my heart and a good trip and a good arrival at destination. He was pushing Gus to go to Spain and from there maybe to Argentina or somewhere. Would you also tell Jean to refer me to Mr. Werber? He can do some good things for me, as I know from good sources. I am living with courage despite everything and with the confidence that my good star will bring me back to France to my family one day. Please give a kiss to Jean, Agnes, and the children. With my best regards, I shake your hands, your friend, Joël Nommick.
Joel, I would imagine that even after all these years, each time you read that, it just must be so haunting to you. His note saying that I am living with courage despite everything and confidence in my good star that I'll one day be back with my family. That just must still be so profound for you.
When I read those letters and the other one that we received from Auschwitz or the one we received from Bergen-Belsen, you can't express what you feel, but I cry, you know. Even my brother is 94 years old. If he reads it, he will cry as well. You know, we cannot forget that. We cannot forget him. We cannot forget what they did to our people as a whole. And, those were bad times.
Yeah, what a powerful message for you to get from him. Your mother decided to return to Toisay, which was in the unoccupied zone of France, with your brothers. And then within a few months, your mother gave birth to you on December 30th, 1942. Yes. That must have been just such a difficult time for her. Your father's gone. You're under all the restrictions you're under. She's got two sons, and now you. What can you tell us about what that time was like?
Well, first of all, the winter of 42 was one of the coldest and winter in Europe that year. So you can imagine if it was bad in where we were, what it was in Auschwitz, you know. Mm-hmm. So the temperature went down. There was a lot of snow, and she had to take a bus when she had the first, signal that she was going to deliver a baby, you know. So she took the bus. It took about 45 minutes to go to Macon in the snow, and thank God where the bus stopped, my uncle was there with a car, and he drove my mother to the maternity yard, and I was born just probably within half an hour after that. I was a premature baby, so I was small, and they didn't know if I will survive. So it took some time.
Just describing as you did, having to
And also, when she took that bus, I forgot to mention, she was very ashamed because she broke the water in the bus.
Mm.
Imagine that, it's but we survived, so that was the best point.
Joël, before we go on, I'd like to just quickly remind our audience that please share any questions that you have for Joël via the chat. We welcome any questions that you have. Joël, tell us what you can then about, after your birth, what life was like for your family in that small village of Toisay.
Well, we were lucky because, in fact, the people in that village consider my family with a lot of respect. First of all, because they saved the fact that they saved their jobs, and because there was no job, so they will have gone, I don't know what, or live from what, going to work in a farm maybe or something. So they were respectful for my mother. They were helpful, and we lived there, like it was normal. In fact, almost, yeah.
We have a viewer, a question that's just come in from one of our viewers, Joël, and this is from Riley. Riley asks, was there a small act of kindness that helped you during that time?
Yes, there were some. First of all, we had a next door neighbor called the Thomason, and there was a family, and they have a little business. They were collecting milk in the farms in surround the village, and they were first of all treating the milk, to that it will be adequate to be sold, and pasteurized, which means pasteurized, and also they will make some cheese and some yogurt, things like that. And the whole war, since I was born, my mother had all this, and they never wanted one penny from us, and never ever. They were really beautiful people, and I remember I grew up. They had two daughters who were older than I, but I used to play with them when I was a little kid, and this whole family was really, I can't, in times like that, when you had people who take the courage, to risk, to have risk, to help Jews, or they were, denounced to the local French milice or something, that they help Jews.
Say a little more about that. Those acts of kindness from your neighbors, that was a great risk for them. Say a
Yes.
little more about that.
Well, normally you cannot help a Jew. You cannot give him food. They are not able. They can't have tickets for rationing, like the other people will have. So thank God my mother had cash. She was covered for the most of the year. She never had to look for finding money. She had money that helped her as well, because she was also paying the rent for Mrs. Berger and her twin daughters, as well as the salary of the father during the whole war. So the girl could go to school and everything else, and get coats or whatever they needed to. And then there was another family. They had a little shop where they were selling, like vegetables, all kinds of things like that. And the Piegel, Mr. and Mrs. Piegel, they didn't have kids. And they told my mother, Agnes, if they come to pick your sons, we pick you, If you get arrested, we'll take your 3 sons, they'll be our sons. That tells the courage of people like that. And they were simple people, not rich people or anything like that.
And it sounds like, from what you've described, everybody in the village knew that you were Jewish.
Definitely.
Definitely. Yeah.
Because even the chief of the milice, the French milice, which was the arm of the French to work with the Gestapo and the SS to run after Jews, to kill them or to capture them, he knew who we were.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And he will see my mother in the street, he take his beret, good morning, Mrs. Nommick, or good afternoon, never touch us.
I want to dwell for just a second on something you said, and that was that one of the neighbors said to your mother, if you were to be picked up, we will take care of the kids for you, which had to be incredibly reassuring for your mother. But just the fact that that was acknowledged that your mother could be picked up, so the stress on your mom had to be immense. Do you have any idea how she was able to handle all that stress and worry? What was her emotional state like?
She told me later years, later years, that sometimes, she was crying at night because she saw me in my little crib next to her bed. And a certain night she said, please God, let me die tonight. I don't want to see this anymore. And then she wake up because, I was crying for milk or something, and she had to do their job, but she had a tough time during the war. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also she never remarried. She never wanted us to get another father or nothing. And I have a lot of respect for my mother. She was a loving mother, really.
And a remarkable woman on top of being a loving mother, for sure.
Yeah.
Joël, during that time, your 2 brothers were attending a high school in another town.
Yes.
And staying with a woman in her boarding house. Will you tell us about that?
Yes. My mother didn't want them to stay in the boarding side of the high school because she feared that if the Gestapo or the French milice came to look for Jews, they have no way to escape. So she found that pension, and this woman had a son who was a prisoner of war in Germany, and she needed money, so she was giving room and board to keep. So she had my 2 brothers there, and they were also. My uncle was there also sometimes, and there were like 2 or 3 guys from Alsace, and they were the Alsatian. They were automatically immatriculated as German people, German folks. So they had to, if they were in age, they have to go into the Wehrmacht or to the SS.
So they had a choice to go to the army or to the SS.
Yes.
Yeah.
So some of them didn't want to go to war for the Germans, and they wanted to go to the Resistance or in the Maquis. And these guys, they were trying to go to Spain and then Morocco to join the American army, which was in Morocco already. So this lady, she thought that if she gave everybody up, they will send back her son from Germany. So she went to the commandant tour, and the guy, I think he was a captain or a commandant. He was a World War I military who had to be there, and he didn't want to arrest all the people. He didn't want to do the police. He didn't want to be a policeman. He wanted just to stay a soldier. So he let everybody knew that he was coming in the morning at 6:30 to arrest everybody. So they all left before 9 o'clock at night, because at 9 you had the curfew, and if you're out during curfew, they didn't even give you any intent that they're going to shoot you. They shoot. That's all. So it was they had to go and found a place. And during a couple of days, since they were not in the same class, so they didn't have the same schedule, they didn't know where the other was. Finally, they find each other again, and they were very afraid that what happened to the other one.
So that was an incredibly close call. That German officer could have easily had them arrested or shot.
And I think I told you last time, in Mâcon now they have a plaque where the commandant was, and the next door was the SS with the milice, the French Gestapo. So if she had entered the other door, they probably will not be here today. Yeah, it was really a close call.
Yeah. Joël, in August 1943, your mother received letters from your father from Auschwitz,
yes,
which is remarkable. What do you know about the circumstances that made it possible for your father to write those letters and mail them from Auschwitz?
From what I knew from people who told us after the war when they came back, my father, when he arrived in 1942 in Auschwitz was still in the growing building time. Mm-hmm. So they needed people in order to build the barracks. And they asked someone. They were asking people who knew glazer to know how to put, glass windows and stuff like that. So my father was very good with his hand; he could do everything. So he said he was a glazer. So they put them in a place with a diamond cut, and take your measurements for this window, blah blah blah, and they give them also the thing to go around. And he did it perfectly. So they say, okay, then you have to go to this place. And he was put to, in fact, not to the barracks. He was put to a German officer who was getting a house for him and his family, apart from they had those brick houses in Auschwitz for the SS or all the other guards. And he did that in that house, and the guy asked him if he knew how to paint. He said yes. So can you paint for my kids the rooms, the color, blah blah blah, and it was done. And he said, "Do you know? Can you make some wooden toys for my kids?" Which he did. And I know for a fact he did that because he used to have made toys for my brother in wood, which I played with when I was a kid. So it was a souvenir. And he even did a copy of the head of the horse of that officer. It was the copycat copy of the horse. So I think that permitted him to stay in a warm environment. Excuse me.
But despite the warm environment, it was still brutally cold, and so he did ask, right, to have something sent to him.
Yes, because he needed warm clothes that we sent, and we know he received it because he acknowledged it in the second letter. And those letters were also sent to Joseph Guy in Mâcon for the same reason, not to us.
So they were also sent to this Mr. Guy rather than to your mother.
And he asked to to little thing that you need, you know, when. But he wanted warm things for the winter, some underwear, some socks. They send him fur boots with fur inside that he had until he left Auschwitz. He still had them, and other things. So, and he could also trade this for other things, I suppose. And he was asking also for tobacco and matches. So that's what he asked, and we know he got it.
Yeah,
And also, I know this because maybe in previous session we had, I told you I've met people who are almost in every prison or camp with my father when
with your father. So you've learned these things from other people. Yeah.
Yeah, so I knew the type of man he was. He was a leader basically, and he knew how to deal with people. Also, he had the chance to speak perfect German, so it probably helped him, you know, to address those people.
Joel, the war in Europe ended in May 1945,
Yes.
but Toisay, where you were with your mom and brothers, was liberated 8 months earlier. At that time, you were nearly 2 years old.
Yes.
Your brothers had very clear memories of that day of liberation. What did they tell you about it?
Well, it was during the summer of 1944, and the classes have not started again yet, and they were a bunch of kids from the village, guys and girls, and they decided to go to a place where they had a lot of bushes with to pick up those blackberries. So they went there and they were having fun, I'm sure. And all of a sudden, they hear a big noise and tanks and trucks. So they thought the Germans were coming back. So they idled their bike behind those bushes, and they hide themselves as well. And then what did they see? The first Sherman tank arriving with the American and the French flag on it. And they ran there, all of them. The soldiers gave them rations, you know, a lot of things, and they were so happy. And they went on the jeeps, you know, with some of the people, because they were also bringing material they will leave for the resistance people. So,
And this particular photograph is very significant.
yeah, my brother Bernard is with a little white mark around his face, and is with the guys from the resistance there.
Mm-hmm.
But I had other picture with they were on the tanks as well. So, but what gendered the most was the packs of Camel cigarettes, you know.
So other things are giving away rations and things. What people remember is getting the cigarettes.
Yeah, because they saw them in the movies from before the war, you know, Hollywood movies. Everybody was smoking, and they thought they were Gary Cooper or something.
Joel, your father, he had survived multiple camps after Auschwitz, including Gross Rosen and Dora Mittelbau. He then survived a death march to the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, and he was liberated there on April 15th, 1945, and wrote to your mother on April 18th. Tell us what he said in that letter that he wrote right after his liberation from Bergen-Belsen.
He said, I am free, I'm well, I should be with you in a short period of time. I hope you're all well and in good health, and I will finally meet the son I never saw, which was me. And yeah.
And your family was waiting for your father to come back after receiving that letter. And when he did not come home after several weeks, your mother asked a cousin, I think in England, to make an inquiry with the British Red Cross.
Yes,
Um,
and they said left for Russia.
that was the response, that your father left for Russia.
So why did he leave for Russia? So it's all we made speculation on what could have happened, because he was Russian. He was speaking Russian, like a Russian. So maybe they took him and they killed him, like they did plenty of. Stalin didn't want any people from the West, so to pollute the good regime of communism.
Joel, we have a question along these lines from one of our viewers by the name of Lindsay. And Lindsay writes, what stories have you heard about your father? Please describe what you've heard about what your father was like.
But I will tell you a story which
Before you do you want to get a quick drink of water?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, excuse me. When on the summer, I think the summer of 44 or 45, don't remember exactly today, but it was a very, very hot summer. So during, after lunch, my mother didn't want me to go to the swim with my friends. I had to wait 3 hours. That was customary at the time. So I will stay home, and I love to read, so I will read. And my mother will be in her room, and she was writing all the time. So she was writing friends or family, I don't know. And someone rang the bell. So I went to the door. I opened, and I see this big, tall guy, young guy. I mean, for me, he was an older guy. He was like 30 maybe at the time.
Right.
And he asked for my father. And I said, I'm sorry, but my father died. He never came back. And he started crying like a baby. Mm-hmm. And I never saw an adult crying in front of me, a male adult. So I didn't know what to say or what to do. I went to my mother and I told her, and she came down. And he explained who he was, and she said, are you alone? He said, no, I'm with my wife and my 2 daughters, and they're in the car. She said, first of all, put your car in the shadow behind the tree there, and come to the house in the cool. And then she gave them, like cold drinks or something. And he told us why he knew my father. He was 17 years old in 1944, and he was from the northern part of France, not far from the Belgian border. And he was arrested at the communist youth. He was 17 years old, and he was sent to Auschwitz. And when he arrived in the summer, I think he was in July or something in Auschwitz, he became sick. He was in the same barrack my father was then. So my father, and with the help of a Hungarian Jewish doctor, they were able to hide him, and then found food for him and some medication probably, and they saved him. And before he left Auschwitz to go to Gross-Rosen, he told him, listen, this is where I live in France. When we come back, I want you to visit me. So this guy was going in vacation in the south of France, and he passed by from the main highway, and there was a panel with the name Toisset, 4 kilometers. And he didn't pick it up right away, and he drive another couple of miles, and then everything came back to him, and that's the way he came here. So for the whole afternoon and evening, I sat and I knew from him what kind of man was my father, even in those conditions over there with the capo regime and everything else, and the calls in the morning for etc. And he told us how he saw how they eliminated in 2 months over 400,000 Hungarian Jews. Imagine that.
No,
They were
no.
arriving, going directly to the crematorium and I mean for the gas chamber and then the crematorium.
As tragic and sad as it was when the man came to your house, you know, in its own way, it was a gift for him to show up and be able to tell you about your father and what your father had done to save him. And I want to say talk a little bit about your mother now, if you don't mind, and give you a moment to get another drink. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm going to. I think I have taken a bottle here of water. Sorry about that.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Our viewers need to also know, as we mentioned earlier, you're in France, so it's well into the evening for you, and I think dinner's waiting for you when we finish.
Yes, but I can wait. You know, I have some reserves, so there's no problem.
Joël, after all your mother had gone through and all the responsibilities that she had, how did she manage in the years after the war was over?
Well, first of all, it was a little difficult because thank God she still had money left for her, but she didn't receive nothing from my father's salary or anything like that. So we had to wait 10 years for having him declared legally dead, which was in 1955. And this is when they can take back their shares.
10 years later, 10 years later.
Because my uncle wanted to sue those former shareholders because they deprive us from our income and they steal from us. So, but the lawyer said, listen, you have a choice. You try to make a deal with them because it's going to go into court. It can last for years. The judges are the same that the judges who were there during the war. They have not changed. And make a deal. So my uncle was able to get a good deal. So we paid them again, but not the same type of amount. And we recuperate the factories. We get back the factories. Mm-hmm. So, and then my mother was, and then at a later date, in 1960, there was something from the German government. She had to sue the German government for what happened to my father, and she got a nice down payment, and then until the day she died, every month she was getting a good income, so she didn't have to beg or ask anything, you know.
Before we turn to a video question we have for you, Joël, you just note that your mother lived a very long life. She lived just almost till her 98th birthday, right?
To the 98th birthday. She died she was 97 years old and 11 months.
And 11 months.
Yeah.
Well, we have a video question for you, Joël. This is from a student by the name of Sandra. Let's go ahead and hear Sandra's question of you.
Hello, my name is Sandra and I am from Springfield, Virginia, and my question for you is about what you missed most about not being able to grow up with your father.
So, Joël, Sandra's asking you, what did you miss most about not being able to grow up with your father?
Well, not growing up with your father is you have something missing in a family, because the father is really the father figure. He's the head of the family. I think he will have been a good teacher for us all. he was a good teacher with my brothers. They miss their father, but thank God, they were able to stay, some years with him. But for me, all my friends, they had brothers, they had fathers, they had their mother. And I was asking, how come I don't have a father? But so when I was a little kid, my mother said, "Oh, he might come back one day. He was prisoner." And he never came back, of course. And to this day, I think I missed him. I missed until these days.
We have if you don't mind, we have another question from a viewer along the same lines, and it's a question and a comment from an audience member named Danny, and Danny writes, "What a beautiful family. Your father lives in your and I'm sorry, what a beautiful family, your family's lives." And then Roma asks, that's another viewer, Roma asks, "How do you suggest we keep alive the legacy of people like your father?"
Well, I think you have to have when, as a human being, when you grow up, you have to take some decision how you want to live your life. And if you want to found a family, this is a big thing. You're going to have children, you have to raise them, you have to help them becoming adults. So you are a model from them. So you cannot do things which are not correct. You have to be honest with them. You have to live honestly. You have to show them that you work, that you are a good husband and a good father, that you take care of the families. That's you can replace that. It's but I think that's what probably I needed also the most. Because even if my mother was really a good mother and she did everything she could for me to study and everything, I'm sure a father will have probably maybe helped me in a different manner. Maybe he will have shown me maybe there is this direction you should go or that direction. And well, unfortunately, it didn't happen. But I think when you don't have a father or a mother, something is missing in you, in your existence. It's very hard to live without them.
Joël, before we close out, I have just one more question for you today, and that is, as we face a dangerous surge in anti-Semitism, please tell us why you feel it is important to share your firsthand account of the Holocaust and what all of us can learn from it.
It's a very good question. Unfortunately, in the times that we are living now, but if I can remind the people, when Hitler came to power in Germany and Austria, the percentage of the Jewish population in Germany was 1% toward the rest of the population. In France, it was 2% when the Vichy regime was there. How come such a small amount of people can be ostracized and are representing all the misery of the countries that they are caused of? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So today, the same thing is happening. You have people are classified by some politicians in every country or some country that they are not your religion, they are Muslim, they are not good, they are not the same color skin, they are black or they are yellow, they are not good, so to put on foreigners all the misery of your economy of why things are not going well for you in that country, you have to be very aware when we start classifying people and isolating groups, because this is where it starts. And then after that, the same scenario can come back. So this is why you should be aware what are your conditions in your countries, take good sources, read, and inform yourself and your family from exactly what's going on, and not because such a person or such a leader say this is what's going on. This, you cannot do that. It's a false thing. It's a lie. So you have to, but it's not easy. But to tell kids, what to do. They go to school. They have to be taught what happened. It didn't happen like this because it was a deliberate thing to destroy a full people. We were 17 million Jews in 1938. Today, we're almost there again. But in the meantime, the world population came to 2 billion people to almost 9 billion people.
9 million, yeah, 2 billion.
So, takes the percentage, it's infinitesimal. I mean, it doesn't.
Joël, thank you so much for not only those closing thoughts, but for being our first person telling your remarkable story about you and your family, and truly your remarkable mother and father, but your mother who carried the burden of getting you through into the end of the war, and then your own growing up. So thank you for sharing that with us today, Joël.
So I would like to thank you, Bill, and thank you also to the team of the museum behind there, as well as all the people who took their time, to listen to me. And I will encourage him to continue to watch this program throughout the months to come. Thank you again.
Thank you, Joël. I'd like to just take a moment to thank our donor. First Person is made possible through the generous support of the Lewis Franklin Smith Foundation. And I would also like to invite you to join us again in March for another First Person program. Thank you for joining us today for First Person with Joël Nommick.